Okay, so I know what you're thinking. Pete, what's with the fucking hat? Well, it's a gestural nod to the comic personae, Algie Black and Artie Mac, that the great Glenn Hirschberg and I impersonated for 11 years, from 2004 to 2015, as we performed the Rolling Darkness Review almost annually. Missed 2 or 3 years. Almost annually. And the Rolling Darkness Review was a mix of theatre, live music and story readings. It was kind of like where vaudeville meets horror, and they both regret it in the morning, no doubt. So what we're going to do in these plague months is Glenn and I are going to read some stories for your delectation and delight. And I, borrowing an idea from my mate Rich Nathanson's Random Movie Club, I'm going to randomly generate the story I will pick today from our 9 chapbooks that resulted from the show. And well, that's fairly recent. Okay, today's offering comes from the Rolling Darkness Review 2013, The Impostor's Monocle. These lovely chapbooks were produced by Earthling Publications. Dina Warner executed the covers for us. Paul Miller was the publisher. And this book contains a story of mine called Postcards From Abroad. So we will, can you see that? We will raise a shot in the Snowman Skull shot glass, which was a premium available in the 2007 show, 6 show, I think. Fucking hell. I said to my wife, so should I do it with real vodka or just water? And she said just water. And I thought, fuck that, I'm having the vodka. It's 11 in the morning, it might have been a mistake. Okay. Postcards from Abroad. The house was nothing special. Just another Liverpool semi-detached. One of those blink and there'll be 10 more other fuckers types of places. If you don't have a granny who lives in one, you've got a mate who does. You know what I mean? There were a lot of them, strung along the half-mile drag of Woolton Road, as it fled Wavertree for pastures snootier. Most of them dating from the dull and deco-free end of the 1930s. This one hadn't even kept the stained glass fanlights that were one of the few things that gave them any character at all, but at least it didn't have a name. You know, Dun Roman or something equally witty, so there was that. I rang the bell and waited, and eventually the front door swung open. The look that the little old lady in the hall gave me once she'd blinked away the glare of the sunlight was neither suspicious nor welcoming, just mildly surprised, as if she thought her life had long ago run out of visitors. "Morning, love," I said. "I'm from the council," which is lower middle class for open sesame. "Oh," she said, as if already worried she'd done something wrong. "You'd better come in." She stepped back, ushering me past her into the hall. It was narrow, of course, and made narrower halfway down its length by the stairs that led up to the bedrooms. I stopped before reaching any of the doors to the downstairs rooms, and turned back to her, figuring I needed to do my bit for civic responsibility. "You know," I said, "you really should ask to see some identification before you let someone in your house." "Why?" she said. "Are you a murderer?" Very deadpan. Not even a twinkle in the eyes. I liked her. "No," I said, "I'm not a murderer." "And you've not come to read the meter, have you?" "I've not, love, no." "Then you must have come about the Banshee," she said. "Kettle's boiling. Go and sit down." Couldn't turn the page there. I hadn't reckoned to be out in the field when the day had started. Morning had found me down by the pier head, getting slapped around by a nasty wind off the Mersey as I made my way to the Liver buildings. Like a lot of government jobs these days, mine didn't really need me to show up at the office. Even the paperwork can be done via telecommute, and given the nature of our department, anything that didn't draw attention to our existence was considered a score. But I'd been told to come in for a face-to-face with a visiting higher grade up from London. We're on the 7th floor of the Liver buildings, and while there's no specific rule about not using the big flashy main entrance that fronts the river, the standing policy is keep your fucking heads down whenever possible. And so we're encouraged to enter through one of the various smaller side entrances, all of which have the benefit of relative anonymity. I like the one opposite the India buildings, because there's a lift right the other side of it that doesn't get as stop and starty as those in the main bank in the front lobby. If it's still start of the working day sort of time, the lift can be packed with a bunch of the internal revenue birds from the 4th floor, but it was already gone 9:30 when I got in it, so my only fellow passenger was Tony from our mob, on her way back up from records in the basement. She'd fetched a folder that must have been down there since before Victoria died, yellowed, damp-stained, all but cobwebbed, and was holding it face in, as per policy. Surprising how a glimpse of file names like Necromancy, Mossley Hill, 1897, can start rumours among the civilians. Tony, who I'm not sure was even 20 yet, wore her hair like Barbara Stanwyck in Ball of Fire and dressed like it had never stopped being 1942 in Manhattan. But I have a conversation with her, and there's no mistaking where she's from. I'd once made the mistake of asking if her name was short for Antoinette. Antoinette, she'd said. What are you, fucking stupid? Me mum likes Tony Braxton. Winsome and delicate, these Liverpool girls. It's why we love them. Morning, Tone, I said now. She tutted at me. Could have worn a tie, she said. Top brass coming in special to see you. What do you like? I don't think I own a tie. I said, tell you what, give his mobile a jingle. Ask him to pick me one up on his way in. He's already here, Tony said, and I resented the hushed and impressed tone in her voice. I'd met James Arkadia before, and I was a lot less fond of him than he was. The parlour, that's what the old lady called the front room, like me nan used to, was clean and tidy, but it had a bit of a musty smell, like it had kept its windows closed on the world a little too long. Her mantelpiece ornaments, probably only Woolworths to begin with, but chosen with taste and now improved with the accidental gravitas of age, sat below a big oval mirror in a genuinely impressive gilded frame. Between the ornaments and the mirror, tacked across the wall in a ribboning sprawl, were dozens of postcards. Our Carol, she said when she saw me looking at them. She's in the diplomatic service. All over the world she's been. Very nice, I said. She ever anywhere long enough for her mum to visit? Oh, yes, love, she said, and I could hear the pride and wonder in her voice at what her daughter's life had allowed for her. World travel hadn't been for the likes of her when she herself was young. I've been to America, you know, she said, and Sardinia, very nice. Most recently the Caribbean. That was probably my last trip, though. I can't take those long flights anymore. I would run in a fever all the way back on this last one. Oh, and Berlin. I had a lovely time there, I did. Almost forgave him for the blitz. I don't mean to cut you off, I said, but you know what it's like. They've got me on a clock back at the office. Can we get back to this Banshee you mentioned? Well, I thought you'd know all about them, she said. You're here to take care of it, aren't you? Well, possibly, love, possibly. I said, look, I'll be honest with you. I lowered my voice a bit, like I was letting her in on government secrets. We have had a few, well, I don't want to say complaints, let's say expressions of concern from the neighbours about the noises. But I don't think anybody said Banshee specifically. Well, perhaps they're not as well read as me, she said. To be honest, I'm not sure some of them can read. That Mrs. Bennet, number 47, again, I said, as gently as I could, if we could stay on, isn't it banshees that howl? Yeah, I think so. Well, something's howling, she said, as if that was that. So what'd you do? Eh? With a banshee, what do you do? What's the procedure? She didn't come over as pushy, just interested. And she seemed much more alive than when she'd opened the front door. Like most civilians, she found this shit fascinating, as long as it stayed on the other side of scary. Well, I said, it'd be your garden that'd be the issue if it was a banshee, I mean. And I'd spray it. The bushes, the hedgerows. Spray it, she said, all disappointed, like a date had shown up with a tandem instead of a Bentley. No bell, book and candle and all that stuff. Well, it's spray. What kind of spray? Is it like poison? Like rat poison? No, I said, it's... Because if there's something dead in there in the morning, I won't be the one shifting it. There wouldn't be anything dead, I said. It's not poison. It's more like a warning. Oh, she said. Keep off the grass sort of thing? I smiled at her. A little more aggressive, I said. Get out of town sort of thing. How does it work? She asked. Can I be indelicate? I was a nurse, love. I've seen it all, heard it all. Fair enough. It's like piss marking territory. Spraying the area to tell a smaller predator that it's had its fun, that it can sling its hook now, because something bigger and nastier is claiming the manor. She gave me a pointed up and down. You don't look big and nasty, she said. Day's not over, I said, and winked. When the lift opened on the 7th floor, Arkadia had been standing there. 3-piece suit, pocket watch, trademark grey leather gloves, and that handsome 40-ish face, and those ancient eyes within it. Antoinette, he said, as if just the sight of Tony had saved him from suicide, as radiant as ever. Not a word of objection from not Antoinette, just a smile that was almost a simper, and a little wiggle that was almost a fucking curtsy. He took her hand, raising it to his lips as he glided her elegantly out of the lift and gestured her down the corridor. Go and further brighten the lives of your lucky colleagues, he said, while I take our young friend here topside. He stepped into the lift with me and we rode to the top floor, or to what I'd always believed to be the top floor, until, via an obscure door that looked like it should lead only to a closet, and the spiral staircase that actually lay behind it, we came to a small circular room that I guessed was inside one of the towers that, from the street 20 flights below, appeared to be merely ornamental. One of my favourite rooms in the place, he said. Have you been to Liverpool before then? I said, which was really stupid. He'd obviously been to Liverpool before. He apparently knew Tony well enough to get away with shit that would have had some poor local bastard up on sexual harassment charges. Oh, many times, he said. I was actually based here for nearly a year. He paused for a half smile. During the war. I nearly bit. I'd heard what he'd said. The war. Not the Falklands War, not the recent unpleasantness in Iraq. Just the war. But I was buggered if I was going to play his let's flirt with my legend game this early in the day. Apart from a couple of chairs, the room contained only a large, circular white table, set below a brass and mahogany contraption that disappeared into the ceiling. It's a camera obscura, Arkadia said, a shadow cabinet. Do you know what that is? Of course I know what that is, I said. Bit of a spin on the tone, I admit. I hadn't liked the way he'd used a foreign accent for the Latin phrase. Bad enough when people do that with French or Spanish, but at least we know what they sound like. Nobody knows what Latin sounded like, so, fuck off. It annoyed me that he could well have been simply making the accent up, confident that no one up here in the barbarous north would challenge him on it, him being such a toff and all. But it annoyed me more that he might not have been making it up, that he might very well have heard it spoken and spoken it himself. A device to capture images via light, he said, like he wasn't going to let the inconvenience of any pre-existing knowledge on my part slow his gallop. Arkady is one of those blokes who regards a conversation as a good lecture spoiled. The name came from Kepler, of course, but the Chinese and the Greeks knew the principle long before. Oh, I said, shame they had to wait 2,000 years for someone to invent celluloid. That was inconvenient, Arkadia said, and I could tell from the delight in his voice that I'd just played straight man to his coming punchline. Of course, not everyone was as patient as they should have been. Chap who made this one, for example. He patted the curved housing of the device with the kind of proprietorial affection a well-heeled Victorian roué might have shown a chorus girl's bottom. It's from the early 17th century, he said. There've been whispers it was once owned by John Dee, but we can't be sure. His eyes lost focus for a second or two, and I knew he was remembering the old days when, if the fancy took him, he could have popped off for a minute or two to find John Dee and just fucking ask him. But Mr. Sweets was dead, And though Arkadia still had plenty of tricks up his impeccably tailored sleeve, time was as close to him now as it was to the rest of us. So it's a magic camera obscura, I said. It takes pictures. Well, no offence, but these days so does me fucking cell phone. No, it doesn't take pictures, Arkadia said. Not as we understand it, but still, it's unique. So what does it do? It remembers, he said, and my eyes snapped back instantly to the machine. Ah, said Arkadia. There it is. He was looking at me rather than the machine, and he sounded genuinely pleased, and not just with himself for once. There what is? I asked. The first of my 3 C's, he said. Curiosity. Oh, I said. Cars? Cancer? I'm sorry? Are we not playing things that kill the cat then? No, we're playing things that make us good at our job. Not, you understand, things we need to do the job. Lots of people can do the job. The 3 C's are what I consider vital to doing it well. Oh, why? I said. So what are the other 2? Well, the second is competence. You've already demonstrated that. I read the report on that mass clearing you did in Wavertree Playground a couple of weeks ago. The mystery, I said, and then off his questioning look, nobody local calls it Wavertree Playground, it's the mystery. Oh, he said, like he'd just had a hit of something good. How apt. Aye, I said. So what's the 3rd C? The most important one of all. Which is? He gave me his half smile again. Well, that would be telling, he said. So these noises, I said, this howling, is it constant? She pursed her lips, thinking about it. No, she said, no, not constant. Is it daytime, nighttime, both? I'm not sure. I hear it sometimes, but not others. Are you hearing it now? Hey, don't be daft. Are you hearing it now? I'm asking if you are, I said, and I glanced around the room, as if only now appreciating its architectural splendours. From the 30s, isn't it, the house? Aye, she said, just like me. But you weren't born here, or anything, I said. Weren't here as a little girl. Oh, no, my husband bought it just after the war. My husband bought it just after the war. He were a bit older than me. Been gone near enough 20 years now. And just moved me in once he'd made an honest woman of me. Oh, Carol was born here. Well, I mean, she was born in the hospital, but we were living here when... But the house is as it was, I said. I didn't like to keep interrupting her, but, you know, meant to be working here. How do you mean, as it was? She said, ready to be insulted. Like I was saying she hadn't once redecorated or something. No, I just mean, you know, original features and fittings and things. What, like the banisters and windows and stuff? Like the coal cellar, I said. Coal cellar? Yeah, is there still a coal cellar down there? Hasn't been bricked up or anything. Coal, she said, like I was an idiot. It hasn't had coal in it for 40 years. Then what has it got in it? Eh? I stood up, because the racket was getting fucking unbearable. What is it in the coal cellar, I said, that's making all that noise? Arkadia hadn't had a lot more to say. Pulled a few further details out of me about the job in the mystery, congratulated me on it again, handed me the file on the Walton Road semi, and that was it. Off you pop then, he said. Got everything you might need? He raised an eyebrow and mimed an example, his left hand sketching in the air in a way that no passerby would have put down to anything more than an unusually elegant Tourette spasm, but which I recognised as an Assyrian scattering spell known as much for its difficulty as for its usefulness. I suppose he wasn't just showing off, but it's so fucking hard to tell with him. Well, I've got me charm and me good looks, I said. See how far they get me, eh? Quite, Arkadia said, and smiled like he was comfortable with a certain degree of humour from among the enlisted men. I was just turning to go when he spoke again. Actually, he said, there's something else I think you should take. He reached into a desk drawer and handed me something from it. I weighed it in my hand and gave him a look. That's hardly standard issue, I said. He shrugged. I just have a hunch about this one, he said. The roars from below only increased in intensity and ferocity as I approached the little three-quarter door at the top of the steps that led down to the coal cellar. But the second I slammed back the top and bottom bolts that had been holding the door shut, the sounds stopped dead. Something new was up there, and had no wish to discourage my descent. Banshee my arse. I suppose the old lady had been technically right to have called them howls, but howls always suggest an element of the plaintive to me, dizzy young romantic that I am, and these things hadn't had a trace of melancholy in them. They were feral, angry, and not a comfortable concept as I made me crouched way down the cramped wooden stairs, hungry. The cellar was long but low, its ceiling not even high enough to let me stand upright, and if there'd ever been a light down there, it was long gone. There was a little residual spill coming down from the house, but whatever it was that was in the cellar had moved way back into the shadows at the rear. Its silence and its retreat didn't mean that it was hiding, though. They meant that it was trying to draw me in. Fuck. I froze for a moment, trying to get me breathing under control and pondering my choice of career. And then I stepped in. 1 yard. 2. A third. And suddenly the thing lurched out of the shadows and came at me. It was the old lady from upstairs. Or used to be. The rot of the dead flesh had left one hand entirely skeletal, and half the chin was naked jawbone. From what I'd heard, these things didn't breathe, but I'd swear those grey, desiccated nostrils twitched as if catching a whiff of the warm meat I was wearing on my bones. It raced towards me, not graceful, but fucking fast. Much faster than the manual says. I thought about writing the editors a stern letter, but I didn't think about it for long. Fuck knows, if I'd come here with just the standard issue kit, this undead thing would have had half me face off while I was still with shit. Fuck knows, if I'd come here with just the standard issue kit, this undead thing would have had half me face off while I was still trying to weave a circle round it thrice and say something in Phoenician. But Arkady had a hunch. I was pissed off that I owed him one, but I can't deny the tingle of gratitude and admiration I felt as I lifted the ancient service Webley and aimed for the head. She was sitting on the couch, looking up at her postcards from abroad when I came back into the parlour. "Everything all right?" she said. "It will be," I said, and I sat down next to her. I took her hand and closed mine around it gently. It still stuns me how solid they can feel. "Ooh," she said, "getting a bit familiar, aren't we? It's not grab a granny night down at the Grafton Rooms, you know." "The Grafton Rooms," I said, smiling, "before my time. Been closed for nigh on 30 years now." "Christ," she said, "that long? It all goes so fast." I gave her hand a gentle pat. It was a little more yielding now, like water within a thin membrane trying to maintain a half-remembered shape. "Are you starting to get a handle on what's going on, love?" I asked her. She sighed. "I think I knew as soon as I bolted the cellar door on it," she said. "I just didn't want to admit it to myself." She looked up above the mantelpiece to the postcards from her daughter again, and was silent for a while. I kept stroking her hand, less substantial by the minute. "Downstairs," she said suddenly. Will someone tidy it? "They'll send a team," I said. "When?" "Once I call them." "Well, you should call them," she said. "You're on the clock." Bugger the clock, I said, still holding where a hand used to be. I'm right here. You just relax, love. Take as long as you need. She didn't need long, and I had nowhere better to be.